Okay, so dear guests, dear participants, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. And I think that we can start. And I would like to remind you that today our webinar is focusing on the EU funding and financial options available for Ukrainian companies and organizations. And I'm more than pleased to introduce you our honorable speakers. It's representative from 89 Global, Michael Kottakis, its founder and CEO, and Kristіан S, co-founder and head of policy. And before we start, just a little reminder for you that this event is organized with the support of the International Renaissance Foundation and the European Union within the framework of the joint initiative European Renaissance of Ukraine. And if you would like to ask any questions, please write them down in the chat and we will read them later after the main part of the presentation. Or if you would like to ask the speakers directly, you can also raise your hand and we will let the floor to you after the speakers are done with their presentations. And please stay mute and try not to switch on your cameras until you're ready to ask a question. Thank you. So the floor is yours, and I mute myself so far.
Okay, thank you very much, Olga. It's very nice to meet you and very nice to be here to speak to members of the esteemed European Business Association in Ukraine. I'm delighted to be here with my colleague, Kristіан. So my name is Майкл Коттакіс. I'm the CEO of 89 Global. I'm based in London, and that's where half of the organization is based. The other part is based in Brussels. We're going to be talking about EU funding today, so Brussels in this case is particularly relevant. We are a strategy consulting firm that aims to help governments and the private sector address major public challenges. How do we do that? We assist organizations in key strategic sectors, obtaining funding from the public sector, from international financial institutions, from banks and from private equity. And we have a sort of a dual pipeline of support services. We provide strategic support to help companies with growth and internationalization plans, and then we try to arm them with the resources to implement those plans through funding instruments. We also do some work with governments, again, more to do with strategy and also some policy. But we're going to be focusing on a particular strand of what we do with funding, and particularly EU funding in this presentation today. Our team consists of 40 people in-house, and it has a surrounding platform of 5,000 associated experts. And we use this network of expertise in a particular way. So we have our people in-house who act as project managers and experts in specific processes such as fundraising or strategy. And then we bring in contextual or market-specific experts from outside, from our platform of 5,000 to provide bespoke support in areas of relevance. So if we're doing a project, for instance, in agriculture, we have somebody, a client who is trying to raise money for an agricultural project from the EU. We have somebody in-house who knows about the EU funding. That's what we do in-house, but we might need some contextual expertise in terms of agriculture. So we bring in a market expert in terms of agriculture from the outside to create a far more specified and bespoke team. And that is our USP. So the aim of today's presentation is to outline the EU funding options available to Ukrainian companies and to consider also certain other sources of funding that can be used in conjunction with EU funding. We're going to look at specific funds and specific case studies related to those funds, and also to the process of obtaining funding from the EU. Kristіан S, my colleague, will introduce himself in a moment, and he will be talking about the specific funds and the case studies. But I also want to say one more thing before I pass over to Kristіан to say a brief hello, and that's about our mission orientation as a company. We are committed to solving major public challenges, and currently there is no more important geopolitical, geostrategic, and geoeconomic challenge than Ukraine for Europe and for the world. And so it is a great honor for us to be able to participate in work on reconstruction projects in Ukraine. We have several ongoing projects in Ukraine, and these are meaningful projects because they have a very, very important and tangible impact. And so we're passionate about our work in Ukraine, and this is the reason why we're here doing this presentation today. I'm going to pass over to Kristіан to say a hello, and then I will get to the next part. Kristіан.
Hello, hello everyone. My name is Kristіан Guri, and I am the other co-founder of 89 Global. I have a background in legal matters and European political and governance matters. Before starting 89 Global with Michael, I have been working in Brussels for half a decade now. On different sectors, ranging from the experience at the European Commission, working at international think tank, and also working in a consultancy on EU public affairs. During this period, I have had the chance to cultivate a deep understanding of how the EU policy making works, how the EU funding works, but also how the EU legislation works. And today, I'm pleased to share with you some insights on how the EU funding works in general, but also in the case of Ukraine. It is a candidate country, as was mentioned and will be mentioned, and it also, from personal experience, something that I know very well because I am coming from Albania, and we are a candidate country also, so I have also hands-on and personal experience with that. With all that said, I can pass again the floor to Michael, and then we can touch base again when it comes to direct funds.
Excellent. So this is an important discussion for now, that the timing is very appropriate. Ukraine has recently become a candidate member of the European Union, as Kristіан mentioned, and there is also the ongoing war. And this means that there are two new categories of funding possibilities for Ukrainian companies that did not exist 1 year ago. And therefore, there are significant possibilities for companies to use this funding to expand their projects and develop. So the two categories are projects that align with core EU aims. So Ukraine is a candidate member now, and the EU funding pillars have several core aims that emanate from the priorities of the European Commission. Currently, the European Commission has 6 priorities, and 2 I would say are relevant for Ukrainian companies, and these 2 are the digital transition and the climate transition. So the first important priority for the EU that must be considered in the context of Ukraine and for the main grant programs of the EU is for the EU to be the first climate neutral continent, becoming a modern, resource efficient economy. And the aim is to do that within the next 20 to 30 years. And the second aim is for the EU's digital strategy to empower people with a new generation of technologies. So it's this transition from a carbon-based energy economy to a renewable and clean energy economy, and the transition from a more analog way of working to a far more digital way of working. And these are areas that Ukrainian companies can certainly tap into. So Ukrainian companies that submit high quality proposals for projects in areas such as this will have a good chance of generating funding or raising funding. And strategic projects of this nature can raise funding in the tens of millions of euros. Sometimes the funding will be able to cover the whole project. In other cases, the funding will be able to cover part of the project. We're going to go into that in a little bit of depth. So by becoming a candidate member of the EU, Ukrainian companies have access to a considerable number of EU grant opportunities. These are going to be outlined by Kristіан, But to access these grant opportunities, it's extremely important that Ukrainian firms align their strategies and align their projects with the priorities of these grants. The second major event, which has occurred, obviously is ongoing still, is the war in Ukraine, and this creates huge needs for reconstruction. It comes at the cost of huge amounts of infrastructure and human life, and it's estimated that the reconstruction needs will total between 600 and 750 billion euros, and likely to go up as the war continues. So given the war, the standard funding instruments that are indicated on this slide will be active in supporting large-scale projects in Ukraine through the grants. But in addition to this, there is also the Ukraine investment framework as part of the Ukraine facility, which will channel blended finance, a mixture of loans, but also some grants to major projects of a strategic nature in the reconstruction. And in this way, EU funding provides the possibility also for public-private partnerships and for the direct support of the private sector by the state. And this is building on major historical events in the past. We're the only real comparable historical event in the last 100 years is the Marshall Plan, which was dedicated to rebuilding Europe after the Second World War. A similar effort will be required to rebuild Ukraine, and resources that will achieve that are necessary. And so the EU has its 50 billion Ukraine facility, in addition to the grant programs that exist at EU level for Ukraine as a candidate member. And these are separate funding instruments, which can also be combined at different points that Ukrainian companies can tap into to grow their projects. And so it's a great opportunity. I'm going to pass over to Kristіан now to begin to summarize and go into a bit more depth on some of these different grants and loan possibilities. Kristіан, over to you.
Thank you, Michael. We can get into it. The first and the most notable program of EU funding is Horizon Europe. That is the main European Union funding program, and that is dedicated to research and innovation. In fact, it's the largest EU funding in total, and it has a budget of 93.55 billion euros for the period of 2021 to 2027. It's also the world's largest public fund dedicated to research and innovation. It provides research grants for projects that will fall within one of the three pillars. First is excellent science. Second is global challenges and European competitiveness. And the third pillar is innovative Europe. Now, Horizon Europe provides grants, research grants to organizations that aim to support the creation of excellent knowledge or of new technologies. These organizations can be universities, can be research centers, private companies, SMEs, non-for-profit organizations, etc. They could be also individual researchers. The second type of grants is action grants. And these are on the other hand of the research grants aimed at disseminating or commercializing the excellent knowledge or excellent technologies that were created with research grants. The main sources or the main sectors of funding are environment, energy, agricultural, transport, climate, digital security, but also aerospace. There is a co-financing rate of 70 to 100% by the funds of Ukraine of Horizon Europe. That means in some cases the applicants or the consortium of the applicants will need to put in resources or find other ways of funding this program in certain percentage, because European Union requires some co-financing to ensure the investment or also to maximize the impact of the funds, but also to ensure transparency and accountability of the applicants. There are cases also where the European Union or via the Horizon program funds 100% of the project. And these are more on when it comes to the research aspect of it. Now, for each program, we have chosen a case study or a fund or a project that has already been funded in practice. In this way, we can also get to learn more about the practicalities of getting funding and managing funding and what makes each project more peculiar. For Horizon Europe, we have chosen the project of Lignoflag project. This project funded the construction and the creation of a new power plant in Romania, which works to convert crop waste into advanced biofuels. It has 4 participants from 4 EU countries: Austria, Germany, Hungary, and Romania. I am highlighting this the participants to show that usually the calls coming for all EU funds are required to have a consortium of companies or of firms or entities that come from different EU countries, but not all only, that also come from different sectors, that they are private sector, public sector, NGOs, research institutes, university. In this case, in the case of the project, the total cost of the project is 34.99 million euros. And the contribution of the European Union is 24.7 million euro. Yes, it is the majority of the cost of the project, but it's a considerable also majority. And in this case, it is not 100% funded by the European Union, but it's in the high majority. There are other cases, as I mentioned, that where the European Union via the Horizon Europe funds 100% of the project. Now, this project took 5 years to implement. I'm mentioning this to show that it takes time to implement these projects, and this is something that companies should take into account when they are, or entities should take into account when they are applying for these funds. The other fund is the Digital Europe program. It's a new funding program which was launched in 2021, and the goal is to encourage the adaptation or to bring the technologies to the citizens, to the companies, or to the public sector. It has 5 areas, the whole project in Europe, but Ukrainian will have access to 4 of these 5 areas, or 4 of these 5 capacities, and it will have access to high performance computing, artificial intelligence, data and cloud services, digital skills, and the use of technology in economy. The program, as for the title, funds projects in supercomputing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and these are just some of the project or of the funding projects. But it funds, in general, funds projects that have everything to do with the deployment of technology and digitalization. As you will see from our case study, in this case, the co-financing required is in the amount of 50%. The budget of the program is 7.59 billion euros for a period of 21 to 27. It's a considerable budget given its mission, but also the fact that it's a new funding program. As for the case study, we have chosen the Vienna Insurance Group Cyber Defense Security Center. This project aims to strengthen the cross-border collaboration and the data sharing between Vienna Insurance Group members and its partners, and improve the cybersecurity resilience through shared data, knowledge, and best practices. Now, this is to put it very, very simply, but they have used the high-level technology and high-level knowledge that there is in this sector to improve the cybersecurity aspects of the cooperation. I have chosen this project also for one aspect. We have chosen this project also to show that project participants are coming from 3 EU countries. First from Austria, Czechia, and Poland. But as you can see, or you will see when you watch the details of these projects, the participants are connected to the services that Vienna Insurance Group provide. They are part of their, we can call it supply chain, or are there even subsidiaries of Vienna Insurance Group in other countries. This is to show that the way in which you decide to form the consortium has no limits, or it is not structured, or it is not decided already, but you should be the one who decide how you frame or how you form the consortium. The only thing is that you should take into consideration and be able to explain very logically why are you forming the consortium in this way, and why these companies or these organizations are part of the consortium. We can jump into the total cost of the project, which is 9.3 million euros, and the EU contribution is 4.6 million euros. This is connects to the co-financing rate that is required in the amount of usually 50% for the projects on digital Europe. The project is being implemented at the time of speaking until January 2026. We can pass now to the live program. The LIFE program is a program dedicated to environment, sustainability, and climate action. Via this program, the European Union funds projects that are on sustainable practice, enhance resource efficiencies, or reduce waste. These are programs that fall within the circular economy. European Union funds also projects on climate change, projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions or promote climate resilience. They fund also projects in clean energy, projects supporting the transition to renewable energies. Here, the co-financing required is between 55 to 60%, and the total amount of the budget of the project for the period of 2021 to 2027 is 5.4 billion. Now, when it comes to the case study, we have chosen the Greencasting Live project. This project, we have chosen this project actually because it may be interesting also to participants here, because this project has to do with implementing a new technology, a new inorganic binders technology in melting and casting metals. And via these projects, the consortium firms, which in some cases are or could be also competitors, they have come together to join efforts and to create to take this on this challenge of lowering harmful waste and reducing emissions, because first of all, that's a required by the European Union via its different legislation and policies. But these organizations have come together also to acquire the funding and resolve this challenge at a more sectoral level, not only one company. That's why you have project participants that are coming from different EU countries, 8 of them, and there are more than 12 entities working on these projects. The total cost of the project is for 7.1 billion. 4.3 million were funded by the European Union. I'm sorry, it's 7.1 million euros, and it's 4.3 were funded by the European Union. The project will be is being implemented and will be completed in February 2026. The other European funding program is Connecting Europe Facility. Connecting Europe Facility aims to improve the infrastructure and economic growth, and at European level. It aims also to improve job creation and the competitiveness. The aim, or the areas where the Connecting Europe Facility works are dedicated to construction and modernization of transport infrastructure. So transport, it's working on energy, in improving energy infrastructure and enhancing energy security, but also in enhancing the environmental aspects of the energy infrastructure. And it also promotes the digitalization of the different infrastructures of the European Union. Then here, the required co-financing is between 30 to 50%, and in some cases, very rare cases, like the example which we will consider as a case study, the Connecting Europe Facility funds 100% of the project. The total budget for the period of 2021 to 2027 is 20.73 billion euros. The case study that we have chosen for Connecting Europe Facility has to do with Southern European electrical vehicles fast charging network. The goal of this project, or the objective of this project, is to create 180 charging stations which have 620 recharging points for electrical vehicles, which could be light duty, but also heavy duty electrical vehicles. The participants are coming from 3 EU countries: Italy, Spain, and France. What is interesting is that the participants in this case are all connected, or are connected to the mother company in Italy. There are subsidiary companies in Spain and France, but they have the same name. They are part of the same holding company, and they came together and applied for this fund, and they got it approved because the nature of the network needed creation was so that it allowed companies in different countries to work. And given that the EV charging stations needed to be placed in different countries, this allowed also the project components or consortium to be built in a way that would allow companies who are under the same umbrella to get the funding or to build the consortium. The EU contribution to the project is 19 million euros in this case, based on what is open source data or available to the public data. This is 100% of the project, and the project, yes, is being implemented as we speak until June next year. Then we can pass to the Ukrainian facility. The Ukrainian facility is an instrument which provides support for the reconstruction and recovery of Ukraine, considering the war, as it was mentioned by Michael. It's a 50 billion euro program, and it's divided in two two types of funding. It's on grants, which are in the amount of 17 billion, and it's on loans on the amount of 33 billion. The Ukrainian facility has three pillars. The first pillar is support and financial support to the state of Ukraine. And in these cases, companies would apply for funding as they do for every other fund in Ukraine. Then there is the second pillar, which is Ukrainian investment framework. This is the pillar that aims to attract and mobilize public and private investment into Ukraine. And the third pillar is the technical assistance and the supporting measures for local authorities and non-for-profit organizations in the aspect of capacity building and growth. For our presentation today, the most important is the pillar 2, which is the Ukraine investment framework. And that is, as I mentioned, is designed to support, of course, the implementation of Ukrainian plan through guarantees and blended finance. The main characteristic is that it aims to provide another 40 billion in additional investment, and it will do that through a de-risking mechanism. Then the other feature is that it combines, of course, grants and loans also within this the second pillar, and the goal is to create or improve the access to finance for the private sector organizations. Now, the way in which the application process is done, it's not very much public, but based on the experience and the expertise that we have, is if you have a project that is about 10 million euros, you go directly to the EFIs, international financial institutions, such as European Investment Bank or EBRD or EFC. If the project is about 10 million, if the project is below the 10 million, then you can apply directly to local banks in Ukraine, who are, of course, in connection and or working with the EU or international financial institutions to implement this project. Then these are working more on energy, on agricultural, transport, and green economy. Then we can pass to the last slide, and that has to do with international financial institutions such as EBRD, European Investment Bank, and the EFC. Given that Ukraine became a candidate country, but also the ongoing war, which we mentioned, the Ukrainian companies, entities, public and private, have access also to additional funding that are provided by these institutions, and they are providing this additional funding, for example, also because they have their own resources, or because they are managing the Ukrainian facility, that is the funds that are coming from the European Union. But they have also their separated or their own resources, and the EBRD until now has committed 4.5 billion euros to that. Instead, EFC has committed 2 billion euros. They provide different types of finance, that is equity, grants, or loans. And based on the project and based on the EFC, on the international financial institution, these loans might change. The one aspect that can be highlighted here is that there are loans who are provided with way more favorable terms that usually you will get via the local banks. But these projects which will be funded by these EFCs such as European Investment Bank or EFC or EBRD, they should align with one of the EU objectives. That is all when it comes to the funds. Of course, at the end, we will have a Q&A session, and maybe we can use that time to get more into the details of each fund, or to get more details about the way in which these work. I can now just pass to Michael to explain more on the application process.
Okay, thank you very much, Kristіан. That's excellent, and thank you for the summary of the different grant and financing options for Ukrainian companies. Now I'm going to talk about the application process, and this refers to the application process for EU grants in particular. And we can discuss other questions related to the Ukraine plan, perhaps in due course or during the question and answer session. So, generally speaking, the process of applying for an EU grant of a significant size, we're talking seven-figure sum of money, a sort of 5 million to 10 million application. It's a rather rigorous and time-consuming process with several steps which need to be completed to a high quality if the project is to stand a good chance of receiving funding. So we separate these steps into two broad categories. The first is preparation, and the second, application. So let's start with preparation. The most important thing to do in this step or in this category is to establish what your project is and to demonstrate how your project, to understand and to demonstrate how your project aligns with the core aims of the European Union, be it the priorities of the European Commission or the priorities of a specific fund such as Horizon, Digital Europe, or Connecting Europe that Kristіan has outlined up until now. So it's very important to take some time to read what these priorities are and to understand them to a high quality. And then to make sure that as you develop this project, it taps in to one or more of these priorities and demonstrates synergy with them. So the project has to be obviously of a high standard. It has to be a obviously impactful project for Ukraine and for Europe, aligning with one of the core priorities. Then you have to develop your fundraising strategy. So we've seen in several of these case studies how the EU funds a certain amount, but not always all, of a project that is that has requested money. So we've seen that for Horizon projects, the co-financing rate is between 70 and 100%. For other projects, the co-financing rate is considerably lower. Some it's between 30 and 50, for others between 55 and 60. So we need to take this into account when planning the project. So when you plan your project, you must plan it holistically. You mustn't plan it just for the basis of an EU grant. You must plan a project which could receive funding from the EU, but will also potentially receive funding from other sources, or which you, as an investor organization, will provide money for yourselves. So many of these case studies that we have demonstrated today have been co-financed, but funding has come from other places. So we're talking about equity finance, we're talking about loans, and we're talking about investment with own resources from some of these companies as well. So developing a fundraising strategy has to take into account the degree to which the percentages by which each portion of the or stage of the project is financed, whether it be financed by EU own resources, other grants, other equity, other loans. And that has to be established from the outset and has to be made clear in any application to the EU. The third aspect of preparation is in partnerships and generating a consortium. So for a project to be successful, it needs to demonstrate a robust team of partners. The reason for this is because it shows an impact of the project, and it shows that it's involving many, many different people. Ideally, the project has an international impact, and so you're involving partners not just from Ukraine, but also from, excuse me, from further afield. We saw many of these projects having 3 or more countries involved, If you look at the breakdown of the financing and the allocation of financing between these partners, very often one partner will get considerably more than the others. But in any case, by demonstrating that you have an international reach and international impact and an international supply chain, you show that there is a European footprint for your project, and this makes your project more likely to receive funding. Kristjan was right in mentioning that there is quite a considerable degree of flexibility as to how you set up these partnerships. So whether you do it as a series of subsidiaries, whether you do it as partners or with competitors potentially to resolve a common challenge, or with suppliers, companies that you work with in different countries that supply materials to you, which you might want to bring into your project. All are relevant as long as it's coherent and aligned with the project objectives and with the EU objectives. So that's preparation. Once this is set out, you then move to the application phase. And this is the most time-consuming phase of all. So the grant application is what will determine the success or failure of the project. So you need to write the project proposal in a specific format, which is requested by the EU, or if we were talking about an application to international financial institutions, also by the IFIs. And this would have to include all the business plans and budgets in the correct format, with great detail dedicated to showing the alignment with EU goals, the impact on whatever it is you're trying to solve, whatever challenge you're trying to solve through your project. There is a specific language and a specific way of writing these proposals, which is not easy for anyone to do. It requires quite a significant amount of expertise. Once the project is submitted, there is then, and hopefully accepted by the EU, there is then a monitoring and compliance aspect. So typically speaking, you won't receive all of the tranches of funding in one go. There'll be several installments. And so you need to demonstrate that your project is meeting its milestones and remaining legally compliant with the EU fund or the EU grant across the duration of the grant. So as we've seen in the previous case studies, the grant or the project periods can last for several years. So we're talking projects lasting 3 years or projects lasting 5 years. So the disbursement of funding will typically take place throughout that duration. And therefore, it's important to remain compliant throughout that duration. So I've included an estimation of the timeline and the working time required to submit an application for funding of between 5 million and 10 million. We've calculated this based on the experience of our in-house team, who've been working on these projects for several years and have raised hundreds of millions in funding in so doing. Typically speaking, to write a funding application of this type, you're looking at between 3 or 4 months. So it's important to identify the call well in advance and then plan to do all of these steps within that period. So 3 to 4 months is typically what it takes. If you can provide more leeway in terms of time, that's even better because you have more preparation. So if it could be 6 months even before the call, that's great. Sometimes calls don't appear 6 months before the deadline, so that's another thing to consider. Typically speaking, calls have deadlines in autumn and in spring. So there are an array of deadlines in September and October, and then there's an array of deadlines between February and April. So really, for projects in Ukraine now, you'd be looking at a deadline of February to April for your next grant applications to the EU. So within the 3 or 4 months to do all of the work, and as I say, the most important part of the work is the grant application. This will take between 300 and 400 hours of work. Typically, a proposal for funding will be at minimum 80 to 100 pages. So it is time consuming, but it's rewarding because when you're talking about grants, ultimately at the end of the day, there's no requirement for you to contribute anything else. You don't have to pay any interest back. It's not a loan. You don't give away any equity. As they say, in inverted commas, it's kind of like free money. So it will, obviously be more competitive and harder to acquire the money. and therefore the process is longer to get it. So that's the application process in brief. And let's move on now to the expertise requirements and the success rate for some of these applications. So as I've mentioned in the previous slide, we're talking about a time-intensive process to deliver a high-quality result. And the EU defines high-quality applications in several specific ways. And this is where applications meet the specific requirements of a call for proposals and align well with EU goals, demonstrate a realistic budget, which seems feasible, and also demonstrates a strong and coherent group of partners. So these are the pillars, and typically the EU will regard projects that meet these specifications as high quality projects. So judging the success rate of these applications is not easy, because we're looking at many different grants across many different areas. We've seen a few of them, but there are many more, which we will consider in the last slide, which is the annex. But typically speaking, on average, for high quality applications, those which are deemed to align well with EU goals, to have a coherent budget and structure, and to have a good consortium, typically the success rate is between 30 and 40%. This is quite good. It means that if you apply once, you have a decent chance, of 1/3 or more chance. If you apply again with a high quality proposal, or a third time, you increase your chances considerably of getting funding. So it's something which maybe should be seen as a process, and you start by applying, but then you receive feedback if you fail the first time, and then you apply again, and you can keep iterating and getting better and better. And once you've developed a project, every time you apply, you can tweak it to make it that little bit better based on the feedback you receive, and this increases your chances of success. So hedging and repeat applications is important. You can always apply to more than one fund, and there are hundreds and hundreds of funds that are open, or calls that are open. So you can apply to more than one, and this will increase your chances. I think we will probably stop there. I just want to, in fact, go through a last slide, which looks at the scope of all eligible EU funds, because we've considered only a few today. We've considered Horizon, Digital Europe, Connecting Europe, and LIFE, but there are others as well. There are programs focused on aerospace, that's the Copernicus program, on EU on health, that's EU for Health. There's the Single Market program, which deals with jobs and competitiveness. The Fiscalist program, which looks at customs. Then there's the Erasmus program, which is relevant to NGOs in particular. So that's more about education, about widening participation. So any universities might be interested in this. There are other research programs, the nuclear research program, Euratom, for example. So there are an array of programs that Ukrainian firms and companies now have access to. And we believe that given the timing, given the importance of Ukraine's geopolitical and geostrategic position, the possibilities for accessing this funding are considerable. Ukraine is not a small country. As a candidate member, it's a significant player, and therefore the appetite for the EU and the scope for the EU to fund Ukrainian firms is considerable. And we're very happy to be able to say this and to be able to present this to you. And of course, we look forward very much to your questions, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Christian, of course. I saw one question that we didn't answer in the chat, and it was about the rolling deadlines for the programs. I think you mentioned some of them. You said, yeah, if you would like to comment, Michael, because you started already.
Michael, would you like to take it, or you want me to take it?
I'm happy for you to take it, Christian. Go for it. Yeah. Okay.
Actually, Michael mentioned in the presentation there are calls published on funding and tenders portal of the European Commission. Within these programs, EU funding programs, then there are specific calls for each project, and in those goals are published two times a year, or they have two deadlines, and that is in spring, which means between February or March and April, and the second deadline is in autumn. That means September, October, some extent even to November. So keeping that in mind, also the preparation should be thought or programmed in a way that will allow you to present a high quality proposal. So yes, there is deadlines, and no, you cannot present the application at any time you want. Then there is this another second question, and would Ukrainian subsidiaries of EU companies be eligible for Pillar 2 of funding? I believe you are referring to the Ukrainian facility, and in this case, you have to see. There are two types, as I mentioned. The application process is structured in the following way. If your project is about 10 million euros, you go directly to the international financial institutions such as EBRD, European Investment Bank, or EFC. And if it's under 10 million, you go to the local Ukrainian banks, which are cooperating with the EFIs. And that means, as any other entity, even if a Ukrainian company is a subsidiary of an European Union company, they would be eligible for these funding because they are a company in Ukraine. So that's how it should be seen there. And then the other aspect is we showed, and there were examples of subsidiary companies, 3 of them working together just to get an EU funding that is outside of the Ukrainian facility. So the same rules would apply there also.
Thank you, Kristjan. Dear guest, maybe you would like to talk. You can raise your hand and we will give you the floor. Okay, another question is, how can you help with preparations? How do you charge? Well, yeah, this is more to you guys.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that question. I mean, we help with preparations across the full range of steps needed to submit the application. So we can help you make sure that your project aligns with EU strategies and funding. We can help you identify your partners if you require European partners, for example. We can work with you to align your fundraising strategy with the call for applications that you're going for. And then, of course, the main work is the grant application. So I mentioned there's a specific language and a specific way of writing these applications, and they're quite time-consuming. We have expertise in doing that, and we can also be helpful in the monitoring phase. So that's how we can help. So it's strategic advice. It's also the actual implementation, the grant application itself, and the partnership acquisition. That's the way that we help. In terms of the fees and per project proposal per hour, I think that's probably not the right time to talk about it here. There are contact details. If you wish to get in touch with us, we'd be happy to have a conversation with you and with anyone about that question. But sort of staying away from 89 Global here, talking more about the funds and the possibilities. I think I'll maybe won't bite on that question.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah,
I can take the one. I can take the one. The next two ones. What is the % of application that is rejected? Michael mentioned that they are for high quality projects. There is between 30 and 40% that are accepted. Then, of course, the rest, that means between 60 and 70 is rejected. That is the reality of the EU funding programs, and that is for grants, because as we mentioned, they are very, very competitive. But having experts and having a high quality project, aligning it with EU objectives, increases the chances of you getting funded. Then where we can study or find standards for the presentation and preparation, etc. I mentioned there is the funding and tenders portal of the European Commission, managed by the European Commission. All information about the calls, deadlines, previously funded projects. Even in addition, if you want to work as an expert, as an external expert for the European Union or the European Commission, that is information that you can find there. I shared with you the website there.
Thank you, Kristjan. Any other questions?
May I ask a question? Small question. Maybe share with us what is the principle of your company pricing. Is it success fee or something like hourly rates, or I do not know what else can be? Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. So the way that we work is we typically have a basic fee, and then we discuss how that fee is distributed. But again, I don't want to go into too many details about the sort of financials and how we work. You know, this is a conversation we could gladly have at a separate stage. But yes, typically, you know, we're consultants. We would charge fees, and we have some flexibility also in how we charge, depending on companies' ability to pay and all of these things. So in general terms, I hope that answers your question. There's some flexibility, but forgive me, but I don't want to go into too much detail about this publicly.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Alexander. We're waiting for another question. Or if not, first I would like to thank you guys for your presentation and for your timing, and dear participants for your time as well. I know that we are all looking for some financial support, and one of the pain is about high interest when we are talking about financial support from financial institutions and Ukrainian banks. So probably I would like to ask you a question as well. Do you think that the interest rate may change in the nearby future, or like it will remain in a high level for Ukrainian companies? Because we know that the risks are very high, especially because of the situation we have in our country. So this is just how do you feel about it?
Well, thank you very much for the question, Olga. There are several insurance schemes which are being activated now, which are designed to help this question that you're raising about the war risks and what this then means for interest rates. I'd note that interest rates have come down a little bit, so it's you know, there's some hopefully light at the end of the tunnel. We expect interest rates will come down more, but the idea of the international financial institutions, and particularly through the Ukraine plan, is to be able to offer guarantees which can lower the interest rates. That's make access to finance more possible for the vast majority of firms that previous to this would not have been able to access at preferential rates. And so that's the whole point of the Ukraine plan, is to try to bring down some of these interest rates through guarantees and other schemes which allow that. the hope is that this will unlock more investment in general into the Ukrainian economy. And if there is more investment, that will then have a snowball effect in, bringing more people in, and potentially also having the banks rethink their rates for Ukrainian companies. So my feeling is that, especially now with the funding that's available for Ukraine, the candidate membership of Ukraine with the EU, and the guarantee schemes, I think, tentatively I'll say that trend will continue. Of course, we can't say that for sure. But the belief, the sort of base case, is that it will continue, and that there will be more investment that can be unlocked, and Ukrainian companies will be able to access funding through international financial institutions and local banks, indeed, at better rates.
Got it. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so any questions, suggestions, comments? I saw some thank you comment from one of the participants. And if there's nothing else, thank you one more time for your time. And I wish all of you the best day possible. Stay calm. And we will send you the presentation and the recording of this webinar to your emails you provided to us while you were registering for the webinar. Okay, so you have an amazing day, the rest of your day, and see you soon, right?
Thank you very much, Olga. Thanks for chairing and for inviting us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation in due course. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much.